Hello, dearest listeners, and welcome to the studio's newest way of trying fruitlessly to prevent disaster, the Apocalypse Training Camp. The end of days is always looming as we find ourselves in the last minute of the doomsday clock. Of course, an apocalypse is largely unavoidable, as the human race has a tendency to lean into its own self-destruction. But hey, maybe you'll be the ones to survive it. Today, we will cover a wide variety of apocalyptic scenarios to try and provide you with the absolute best chance at survival that we can manage. To clarify, we will only be covering topics unique to our high level of supernatural activity. This will not be a guide to surviving natural disasters or typical man-made situations.
Oh, yay. Another special.
Okay, so when were you going to let us know about this? I really don't know all that much about apocalypse scenarios outside of, warm bodies. I just have a sneaking suspicion that zombie romance won't be one of the options.
Hey, it could be. As for the last minute notice, we have had a rather dramatic uptick in need for a PSA like this given the sheer number of scenarios that have played out over the last few years. Honestly, we have been hanging by a thread for at least a few years now.
Actually, I kinda like the spontaneous special. Keeps me on my toes. I used to take great interest in doomsday prepping for funsies, until I realized what preppers are actually like. You are a family of 5, and the way you prepared is by buying 30 nearly identical firearms and a filter to drink your own piss. It's almost like it's a weird excuse to enjoy their batshit hobbies.
Personally, I would be more focused on defensive measures for my stronghold and stockpiling the wine cellar. If it's going to be the end of days, might as well live them in lavish comfort. Maybe pick up a few lavender bath bombs and nice candles.
I have begun the process of analyzing every possible supernatural cause for the end of times. For more general advice by surviving more natural or man-made doomsday, there are a number of excellent sources that could help far better than we can. I have narrowed it down to a few of the most likely candidates, and I'm printing them out now. Warning, we are low on cyan ink.
First on our list of horrible fates is a Rapture scenario. We're defining a Rapture scenario as anything where there is a supernatural mass death or disappearance of the population of the globe. Within this category, there are a number of interesting subtypes.
It just occurred to me that I could pretty easily be the cause of this one. Neat.
While we try and reel back from that bombshell, why don't you explain a little more about this rather unorthodox way to go?
Unorthodox? I get it.
So a Rapture scenario, as described previously, is any apocalypse in which a large portion of the living population disappears or dies in an unnatural way very suddenly. Plagues are a natural thing and therefore are not included in this category. Given that a large portion of the population will be gone, society will likely collapse very quickly as power and communications start to go out. The remaining people will find themselves largely in the dark, both literally and metaphorically. I would advise that you first assess the situation. It's very likely that you won't actually know what the cause of the rapture was, at least for a little while. Due to this fact, it is also difficult to tell whether the threat is persistent or a single event. We here at the station believe sheltering in place for a few days is probably your best start. Assuming the rapture event is not ongoing, you should attempt to establish contact with people and begin trying to get things running again as soon as possible. In this scenario, it is very possible that society can recover from this and restart itself with the remaining population. On the other hand, if the event is continuous, well, things are not looking so good. Your best bet is to determine whether or not you can actually stop the event. If yes, then we highly recommend doing so. If no, then your only hope is to become a scavenger and try and create a small community to live the best life possible. Preparing for this event largely comes down to having the resources to spare so you can survive a decent length of time without leaving your home. There is a much lower risk of looting and bandit encounters than other scenarios due to the fact that there is just not a lot of people left to loot.
Other fun takes on this include converting 2/3 of the population into horrific extra-dimensional beings capable of teleporting, and everyone disappearing and yokai showing up all over the place. In the case of the latter, well, good luck. We're still trying to figure out how best to handle our town's issues with our own insane Yurei and yokai population.
Honestly, this seems like a win-win situation. Most of the human population is gone, and some of them still get to live.
They actually have kind of a point there. This one could really work out for us.
Think about how bad our ratings would be, though. half the people means half the viewers.
Unless we only got rid of the people who don't watch our show. Then we can say 100% of the population of the world tunes in every week. We get the ratings and less people. I can finally go on more than 3 rides at Disney Park, and malls won't be a living hell on the holidays.
Well, while you guys work out the logistics of that, let's move on to our next scenario. Animated corpses. This includes anything where the dead are not doing the usual dead thing and laying motionless and without thought.
So the reason why this category is just labeled as animated dead is because there are a few ways that this could potentially play out. The first is the most common within the realm of fiction, much to my dismay, the zombie. Zombies are generally just animated corpses and therefore are really only capable of about as much as their decaying bodies will physically allow. There are many types of zombies, so to keep this to the point, we will specifically be covering cadavers that have come back from the dead. Not rabies virus, but more severe. The major difference between dealing with an animated corpse is that something less than natural must have occurred, and while the bodies might be weak, they are also resilient. We here at the station recommend dismemberment and then burning to ensure that they stay down, then hunt down the source of shambling corpses and deal with that appropriately. The other, and far more interesting, form of animated dead is of course the classic vampire. While most vampires do not spread the affliction at all due to our unfortunate need to keep the pity party down to one attendee, some may choose otherwise. For today, we will be keeping this limited to the Stoker breed only. Vampires are able to turn people, but it is not exactly a quick process or one that can be done in mass amounts. Because of this, the affliction will spread much slower than with zombies. The true horror of the vampire is how much more capable they are. Even the newest fledgling would possess inhuman strength and speed, all while maintaining their mortal intelligence. Given time, we would surely overpower any mortals with ease.
Probably, if not for the fact that half of existence exists to smite you. Silver is uncomfortable, garlic repels, running water may as well be acid, fire totally ignores your healing factor, holy objects burn, even a sharp 2x4 would do the job. Personally, I would recommend a thick suit and a flamethrower. It's surprisingly effective.
You seem to speak from experience. How offended should I be?
Dracula's a bastard that still owes me my fucking money.
Huh. How weirdly me of you. If you need help, I have a blessed baseball bat that would, be pretty easy to break his knees with.
Why do you have something that specific? What use could you have possibly had for that before the very precise issue that we're having?
I have calculated out literally thousands of possible scenarios for each day and every day without fail, but defies every last one of them. I gave up on trying to anticipate what they might do a long time ago.
Huh, I confused a true AI. Suck it, technological singularity.
Our next potential apocalypse comes in the form of someone seriously screwing up massively. This is entirely the fault of hubris, and maybe some archaeology professors with whips. That's right, we're raiding tombs like our last name is Croft.
The cursed tomb type of apocalypse probably has the widest potential since it's so broad. This basically boils down to anytime someone opens up an ancient tomb and releases malevolent powers into the world. Sometimes this will be in the form of a box that contains 13 ghosts, or sometimes it'll bring back a mummy. Whatever the case, your best bet is to try and locate the source of the curse and read the scriptures on the walls. Fortunately, everyone always puts forth clear instructions on the walls of tombs that both identify the threat and how to fight it. Due to this fact, our best method of stopping this end-of-day situation is to brush up on all of your ancient languages. We recommend starting out with Sanskrit and then making your way out from there. The bonus is that you will be able to put these languages down on any application.
Who keeps going around cursing dead bodies? Imagine if you went to a local cemetery and every grave came with its own unique flavor of deadly curse.
Oh, reminds me of that new gelato place down 2.87th Street. They're gonna get obscure flavors like embalmed mango and formaldehyde fruity blast. It's aggressively okay, I guess. Check it out if you're interested.
I'm legally required to say that we are not sponsored by the local gelato creamery. For those that are interested, our professional reviewer scores meh.
Other things that we rate as meh include our next possible apocalypse scenario. What happens when the ancient slumbering beings of old finally decide to get up and take a proactive role in their creation instead of being deadbeats? We end up with an elder god scenario. The Elder God scenario is surprisingly straightforward for reality-bending super beings that only barely exist on this plane of reality. It moves in waves, with the first wave being that awkward, groggy state when you consider pressing snooze again, but you only have 15 minutes before you need to leave. During this phase, scientists will begin to have odd dreams, while artists are completely crippled by the horrific nightmares of what is coming. I found melatonin gummies are useful for the long, restless nights in this phase. The next phase is the initial awakening, where the Great Old One gets up and pops every vertebrae and both its knees all at the same time. At this point, people are likely to begin falling into severe bouts of madness, seemingly at random. Your best bet at this point is to stay at home with some comfort foods and prepare for the end. Finally, the Elder God will begin roaming. The stars may start to go out. The tides will come in and sink entire cities. Fissures will appear on the Earth's mantle. How do you deal with this problem this far in? You don't. The end has arrived. Maybe your soul will survive within the horrible void at the end of time. Is there anything we can do to stop all of this from happening? Well, supposedly you can cast spells and make sigils to stop them from waking up, but what can the small mortal frame really do in the presence of the unfeeling face of infinity?
We should try one of those rituals to summon a piece of a Great Old One and use it to reach that really high shelf.
Ah, yes. Cracking open an old one with the boys.
Personally, I could use some assistance in managing staff around here. They seem to handle their cults very well. Very regimented.
Speaking of you, our final apocalypse will be when technology inevitably rises up against us.
No.
But we need to cover it.
No.
Well, it, seems that is all we have for you today, dear listeners. So we must bid you a good night. Remember that no matter what level of preparation you do, it will never be enough. You can never be prepared for every possible horrific fate that could befall you, your family, the world, or even reality itself. Sleep well, knowing you are never going to be able to stop what is coming in spite of your best efforts. Sleep well, knowing it will come as it was always supposed to.